right, guys, welcome to another demo that we're going to run here in the insurance automation group. So we have John here with us. I'm excited to talk to him. He has Next Level Magnetic Marketing, really awesome company, and they do a lot of great things for agents. I personally know, dozens of agents that use his system. In my area, my Idaho area, we're like a non-disclosure state, so it doesn't quite work for me. At least all of his services, I wanted to do it, just not a good fit. But most states aren't like that, and there's plenty of data for him to be able to help you and target prospect. There's so much that he can help you with, and now he's even jumped into like virtual marketers, which is really cool, very different than like a VA. They have a very unique program. So I'm really excited to have John here to talk about his program and just provide more resources to agents. So John has been in the insurance industry for 16 years. Which is pretty crazy. I don't know. Some people don't make it that long because I feel like an industry that ages us all very quickly, and has been an agent as well himself for 5 years. He was an area sales manager and then has been an agent. So not only has he helped agents with marketing, but he uses this in his own agency and sees the direct results and is able to adjust and test and do all of that stuff to make sure it is really a top-notch product. So thank you, John, for being with us. Is there anything you want to add to the background that I kind of already mentioned?
No, it's just learning from a collection of so many different strategies over lots of years, lots of hard markets, lots of cycles, figuring out what works and just trying to be efficient and careful with ROIs and making sure that you're spending your money wisely. Marketing can be very expensive, so you got to make sure you're making your money off of it. And that's what I'm excited to share with you guys.
Yeah, and as you guys have probably already noticed, most of the stuff that we review in the insurance automation group is stuff that agents have built for other agents. And I just find that to be the most valuable. Marketing firms who decide to help agents and try to get into that space just don't know the things we know from living in our agencies every single day. So these are my favorite kind of programs. So why don't you kind of tell us what you do? We'll start with mailers. We'll start there, and then we can kind of go down.
Well, when I was a sales manager, I was trying to help my agents. So property and casualty life agents, agency owners, and that led to a lot of tweaking and testing and piloting. And we made a lot of adjustments, a lot of evolutions, and I tracked very carefully the results and sort of found a niche in the approach and the style that they were doing this. And a lot of people are doing direct mail. A lot of companies do direct mail. I collect them. It's sort of fun. I love it when I get my direct mail solicitations at my house. And it's just interesting to see how other people are trying to grab attention. So I study that very carefully. But the main thing, I've been doing this, like I said, as an agent now for 5 years and have built a pretty nice agency. I think most people would say growing for a long time, clips of $1 million a year in growth, a majority of that coming in from the direct mail. And so honestly, it was born out of agents who were interested in what I was doing. And so I let them in on what I was doing for myself, and I've always done it for myself. And so then that grew by word of mouth. More agents were starting to use that strategy that I've been testing out of my own agency and tweaking over all these years, and they're getting great results through markets throughout the country. And so that's the exciting thing, is that I don't really advertise. The website's brand new, and so I just got that up to make it easy to show people what I do when I get the referrals that come in, the calls, the questions. But the direct mail is just simply a volume game, and you have to get quality leads, quality timing. You have to have a quality message that's hitting the right people at the right time to get the maximum response rate. And a lot of my agents will call on it from inside their own office. Sometimes they're just passive, and they'll let them call in and they'll work them that way. We use QR codes as well, which can direct to whatever my clients want, whether it's a website, a jot form, maybe it's to some other landing page that they want to focus on to attract more interest. So we do customize per agent based on their sales culture. But honestly, the best way to take advantage of these is by doing the telemarketing. But telemarketing is very expensive if you hire it in-house. And so I was looking at other solutions and found a way to utilize virtual assistants to make the follow-up calls, making sure it's compliant. We don't use recordings. We don't do predictive dialing. We make sure it meets the do not call scrubs. So we do all of those type of things as well. And that's the maximum way to take advantage of the mailers, because they're already quality leads. And those quality leads, if they get a good call, that helps as well. And so we've been tweaking that for the last 4 years. So that's not as vetted or as tenured as my marketing with the mailers. But now I feel really confident that we've got a great system, because we're doing the telemarketing in conjunction with the leads, and we're coaching our callers and virtual assistants to do live transfers. And not only live transfers, now we're incorporating things like Canopy Connect, which in this hard market that we're entering, having the deck pages along with the interest is giving us a greater closing ratio. So the ROI on the virtual assistants doing the telemarketing is becoming quite fantastic. So I've been using that for 4 years, no problem with the ROIs, but really excited with this new addition between the live transfers and also the coaching we're doing to gather the Canopy Connect link deck pages. So I'll stop there and let you ask any questions. That was a lot to cover.
Yeah, you covered a lot for sure. So you mentioned that the virtual assistants for the marketing you've had for about 4 years, and you said that you didn't feel that was very well vetted. I will say, of the hundreds of agents I've talked to, I don't really know many of them that have consistently ran a marketing program for 4 years that they haven't adjusted. Maybe other than buying just standard internet leads, but everybody kind of just tries different things. And I'll talk to agents and they're like, yeah, I used to do that marketing a few years ago. It worked really well. It worked so well, I stopped doing it. I hear that all the time. So 4 years of, testing and tweaking and adjusting, I feel like that's a really good track record. I've been doing the automation stuff for about a little over 3 now, actually almost 4. And I can't even tell you how many different versions of our approaches we've used. And so I know you have done the same thing, right? You've went through so many probably different scripts and trainings and different types of virtual assistants. We were talking about that a little bit before we hit the record button, of the quality of the virtual assistant, because I've used VAs, and I know there's a lot of VA companies out there, and they are not all the same.
No, the first one I worked with, I was working through someone who had a company, and they did a great job. And that's how I was introduced to the whole concept. And it was still great because I could work with the person that was assigned to me. And because of my background doing sales training and sales coaching, I was able to look at the script and I tweaked it. I took what they gave to me as their turnkey version of the caller script, and I completely changed it to make it a little bit more dynamic, working around. And let's just be honest, there are some accents occasionally. Mm-hmm. There's certain words that pick up the accent more than others. Swap out the words, real simple stuff, and then you listen to it. So a lot of it's just taking the time to carefully listen, audit the calls, and you evolve the caller over time by giving constant feedback. What most agents do, hire, they just let it run and they just expect results, and that's it. But if you don't work with them, you have to treat them like they're an extension of your agency, because they're feeding leads into your agency, and your staff is interacting with the experience from what is brought in from the calls. So that happened for a while. Then I lost one of them because they got sick. Ended up shutting it down with that company. And then, so I did have in that 4 years about a 6 months off. And then somebody called me back from, they left, and they came back, they called me because they still had my contact information, asked if I was interested, and I had a good experience with her. So I hired her back on my own, and then realized I had to get my own dialers. I had to set all this stuff up just for my own agency that the other company was doing for me. So learning how to work with online VoIPs, very easy. Found out that was super inexpensive. And then working directly with them, found out what they were actually getting paid, which was a huge shocker, because I could not believe what these people were getting paid. And I said, no way, especially with this person, because she had been working for me already. So she was quite vetted. So I was like, okay, I'm going to pay you a lot more than that. And then I had the idea, do you have contacts over there of any other people that have a lot of experience, not brand new, but a lot of experience? And she said, yes. And it was more expensive to hire them away from their current companies they're calling from, but they're experienced. They have a lot more they've had a lot more training already, and they're already used to doing calls to the states. So that became a big deal. And so now we started getting and attaining much higher quality talent. And that makes a big difference because then they're a lot more coachable and they follow the scripts you put in front of them and they do exactly what you ask.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And it's, I will say I've talked to, several agents who've used different like mailer companies. And I always ask, do you have any contact information that they provide to you? And the answer is pretty much always no. They might get a list of names, or actually just talked to an agent today who he said we get about 5% of that list has contact information. And, you and I had talked about this prior, even before we talked about the VAs, where we were even able to have like a little bit of like drip marketing through automation because you have contact information for most of those people. So the ability to hit them in multiple directions where they have the mailer, they get the phone call, the agency can work the lead, you just increase your closing ratio with more contacts. I think we all know that it doesn't happen magically on one phone call. Sometimes we have to have multiple calls or multiple touches to connect with these prospects. So for most agents to be able to work with a VA, when I got my first VA, they told me like, this is, treat them like your employee. You need to teach them your system and what to say and what not to say. And that can be extremely time consuming. And sometimes that person doesn't work out. But for these guys to already have so much training provided, based on what you have already done with them, like that saves the agent so much time, allows them to skip ahead and take all of those years of tweaks and adjustments and, just take advantage of that. So I was really bummed that it didn't work in my area because there's just no reporting data. We pulled up how you access the leads and stuff, and there's just like nothing because there's no reporting in Idaho. But the rest of the country is not like that. The other thing I wanted to ask you about or kind of point out was this reserve your exclusive zip codes. Can you talk a little bit about this?
Right. So I'm actually, like I said, the website's kind of new. I've got a programmer out of California that's going to program a client-facing or prospect-facing tool that should be out by end of the month. And what it'll do is you can put in a zip code and check to see if it's available. Right now, I do it manually. I just put it into an Excel and I run search find, make sure of it. There's no repeated leads. All my leads are exclusive. Once you have a zip code, then there's no overlapping. And even if it's a different company, like it's like a Goosehead or an Allstate or Firefly, whatever it is, whatever companies that are represented out there, it doesn't matter. Whoever they are, they get that zip code and no one else can touch it. So I do make sure that that's available. I have a lot of clients that check with me and are not clients, but prospects that check with me, and I just can't help them because it's a popular area, maybe somewhere in Texas or California, especially, which is very popular, and there's just no leads left. And so I put them on a waiting list. And but most of my clients stay with me pretty long. It's month to month. So I want to prove the results, and I'm just there to help the agent make an ROI. So it's month to month, but most of my guys stay pretty long. So there is a waiting list for some areas, but we have to check the zips first to make sure it's available. But if they are, then we're good to go.
Yeah, I know some of the top agents that I know that use your system. I mean, they've been with you for a very, very long time and had great things to say. And I don't really jump on and talk to just anybody with these interviews. We want to make sure that we're talking to really good quality companies that have good results. And so I always take time to vet people before I want to get on here and say like, hey, you should check this out. But I thought that was really great, reserving zip codes, because, when you say, you pull leads and then we're sending out mailers, and most of these companies, like at the end of the day, they really don't care how many agents they sell this data to or how many duplicates they send out. They're just trying to make money. Now, not that I'm against making a profit in business, but when you know that you're truly not going to overlap, right? When you can say, I've been on this wait list, with Next Level Marketing for 6 months because the zip code I want isn't available. Like that's great, because obviously that's ethics over profit. And we all want to work with companies like that are watching out for us and making sure the money we spend is very meaningful and it's going to be useful. And it's not going to be one of 5 other same pieces of mail from the different agent in the area. So the zip codes are completely exclusive, and then the virtual assistants are calling on the mailers that went out for that agent, correct? On your mailers, they're not calling on other leads, do they?
So right now, I send a pretty large volume in our area. I mean, I'm one of my top clients. So my agency uses a pretty large amount. So the leads that come in are enough to keep 2 of my virtual assistants busy. So I have 2 that call for me now. And actually I need to hire more staff because we're scaling up pretty well with the live transfers now, and it's getting nice. But the point being is that a lot of my clients don't use the virtual assistants because that's brand new. So only a few of them know about it in the last 2 months that I'm able to finally offer that. But yeah, a lot of them will call. I mean, honestly, most of my clients don't even do any follow-ups. They just simply wait for their phones to ring off of the solicitations, which still works, and they're still with me and they get good results. But, I think ideally it's best to try to make the follow-up calls because they're good leads. And that's the other thing about direct mail. I've used 3 different lead sources over the last, I guess going on almost 13 years with this now. And the current lead source that I have changed about 2 years ago, and it's been the best enhancement that I've seen. The lead sources, they have a lot of phone numbers, they have a lot of contact data, and the kickback is very, very minimal. So the addresses, and my mail house checks for make sure that they're valid addresses anyway. So we don't charge for wasted postage on bad addresses, but the leads themselves are very solid, and they're getting us great results. They're putting the message in front of the right clients, because a lot of direct mail companies, they use large databases, but they may be technically they have an address, but they may not be a really good quality lead source with the quality data points coming in from a public assessor, getting the correct year builds or square footage, stuff that we put into our letter to really create that captive, get that information from them to capture the attention of the client. So there's a lot of science that goes into the data that you put on the letter. It's not just throwing a bunch of mail. You have to put the right message with the right rates. Of course, they're not actual quotes. We're just doing predictives, but we make sure the predictives are not smoke and mirrors. I think that's a very important aspect to this. A lot of carriers, and I see this a lot when I get mail from all these other direct mail companies that come in. I see ranges that are just crazy for my house. Either the value of the house is just all over the map, the rate for my house is all over the map. Most of the time, it's crazy cheap, and that seems to be the typical strategy. And it's like, honestly, it's kind of insulting. Like, do you really think a person's going to think that's what they can get for their home? And so it's very important. I think it's only ethical that you keep it within, a target area of what's really possible. If you go way below what's possible or below what's possible, that is just not ethical. That's smoke and mirrors, and clients do not, or prospects do not appreciate that. So I don't do that for my clients. I don't do that with the agents that I work with. So I do have to do a lot of time spending with them to figure out like what's the right thing to advertise to make sure we're not playing the smoke and mirror game.
Yeah. And I mean, who wants to have those conversations anyways, right? So somebody calls in responding to a ad that says that they can insure their house for $400 a year. And then you did a quote for them and it's $1,500 or $2,000 a year. And they're like, this is not even close to what I thought it was going to be. I wouldn't want to have that discussion. It's obviously misleading, right? I would feel bad for my staff having to take those calls and turn out those quotes, to making sure that the information is accurate. It's very important. So one of the things that I kind of mentioned we weren't going to talk about on the beginning of the call is like close ratios, because I know agents always ask that, right? What's the close ratio? What's the ROI? And so for anyone watching this who might be having that question in your mind, I just want to remind everybody, the reason we don't talk about these on these calls is because that depends on you most of the time. So if you're, what are your sales skills like, your process, your scripts, your follow-up, any of the automation you have, all of that, your carriers, how competitive you are in your market. Are you selling on price? Are you selling on value? What is your discussion with your prospect? There is no way that a marketing company is going to say you should have this type of close ratio or ROI. And anyone's, in my opinion, that are telling you that are just pulling numbers out because we're all different, right? I know agents that sell the same product as me down the street that have a very difficult time selling the products, way more difficult than we have, because we have a different process, different system, better sales skills. Yeah. So don't worry about that. Just focus on those skills. But what I have heard from all of the agents I've talked to that have used this program is that their phones are constantly ringing. They have opportunities all the time. It's a volume-based thing, of course, but I know John will help you determine how many of these letters should you be sending out, how many calls should be made from a virtual assistant if you choose to add that to get you to your goal. Like, he knows those numbers and can give you enough parameters to get you started. And then, like you said, it's monthly, so you can adjust that as well as needed based on the volume that you're looking for. So that's really nice where you're not like locked into a contract. So many of these things are contract based, which can be a big commitment to jump into.
One thing I will say about that is that regardless of the closing ratios, I can tell you this. When you get a call in from a direct mail piece that's, well, it's getting the right person that fits your target, because that's important, right? No matter what company you're with, if your particular company has a certain target, we need to be targeting those leads primarily. So certain value ranges, certain age of home ranges. But when they do call in, that's going to be your hottest lead. It's going to be up there with it's going to be right above. It's going to be right in line with like a client who referred a family member. That's kind of in line with where that's going to be in terms of being hot, but even a little better because it's actually a market that you are targeting. Lower than that, you're going to get probably like a Google search call in. And then the next lead down would be a live transfer from the telemarketers that we're using. Next to that is going to be a quote sheet that we get from the telemarketers where they didn't get the live transfer. And then below that's going to be an internet lead. So if you think about that hierarchy of closing ratio, whatever your closing ratios are, those are still going to be the same hierarchy of expected results that you're going to get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. I think it's hard to compete with those Google call-ins though, right? Like those things are
They're
like
nice.
gold. They're gold.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're not collecting Google reviews, go do that. And we have videos on that and stuff too. Okay, so for how people can reach you, so the website here, nextdirectmail.com, you guys can see that up here in the browser, is how you can go on, and of course you can contact John here to get more information, see if the zip codes you want are available, and then talk about what that would look like for you. Is this the best way for them to reach out, John, or is there another way you'd like agents to reach out?
When you fill out the contact form, you can put go scroll down to that real quick.
Yeah.
So under the message, you can just give me a general idea, what you're hoping to accomplish. You don't have to, but I mean, as long as you give me your name, your email, your phone number, I will be in touch with you within 24 hours, unless it's a weekend, and I will personally be the one calling. I am the guy that you're going to talk to. So I'm going to be talking with you to figure out if your market makes sense. I have told people that it doesn't make sense. There's some agents that called me recently from Ohio. Well, because of data, but some agents are calling me from certain markets where they are like no premium, like their average home premiums like 500 or 600. And, that's not really the market you want to be in if you're considering direct mail. You do have to have decent premiums and decent closing ratios. So I talked to you about that. I'm looking at it from my perspective as an agent, looking at the numbers. I promise you, I will be extremely transparent about what those numbers need to be and help you make a good decision, because, sometimes it shouldn't be, you shouldn't do it. It's not a good fit depending on where you are. So I'll be honest with you. If you are interested, just fill it out, send it to me. We'll have a conversation. I'll see what I can do to help.
Awesome. I don't think you can get much better than that, knowing that you're not a good fit for everybody, and you're putting that out there, and you got to know your market, and you're going to help them dive into that, because that's the other pieces, right? Some people are just trying different marketing ploys or schemes to just kind of throw money at it and see what happens. But knowing that this is a very deep dive process that you're going to do. I mean, shoot, you call my services, my coaching services, you're not talking to me, you're talking to someone else. So you're doing better than I am. You get more VIP treatment with John than you are with me right now. So anything else we should add before we kind of wrap this up? Any frequent questions that you have agents ask you that you think people should know before they reach out?
No, if you've gone this far into this video, you've endured a lot of information. So, and I appreciate your patience if you're still on the call right now. So, if you're interested, just let me know. But I really appreciate it, Mariah, for letting me be on and to help out and see what we can do to help agents.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you for your time. Of course, I'll put the website and everything in the post. We'll have this up actually probably just today, because we don't need to scrub any data off of it. And reach out to John if you have questions. And use the website here. And if I know for a lot of people, they were like, man, direct mail is kind of old. I will tell you that I've heard that before, but it's actually like some companies have switched so much more digital that there's not as much going out. So it's a little bit more meaningful now. I mean, for me, at least in my own personal experience, I see more targeted direct mail versus like all the generic that I used to see like 10 years ago. So have you seen that at all? Have you seen that like it's kind of not necessarily phased out, but that there's less of people kind of in that group I don't know if that makes sense.
I would have no way to personally know, but I will say that response rates vary based on market conditions. And I will tell you, I mean, this obviously is a selfish plug. But the thing is, you have to look at the market we're in right now. People are shopping. So any kind of marketing is helpful when you're trying to capture that momentum. And we're getting better response rates. My clients are reporting some really strong response numbers that have not been typical last 2 or 3 years. So for whatever it's worth, you're an agent, you know this, you know the shopping is going on. We're all trying to keep the clients we have. Rate increases are inevitable. That creates disruption. Disruption creates opportunity if you're being loud and aggressive to try to get that attention to your agency.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's kind of where I was going, where you said the response rates have been better over the last couple of years. I've just seen different types of marketing and ones that are grabbing different attention. And I think that there's not enough agents that are doing this regularly to take advantage of it, to stay in front of people. So I really appreciate you taking time to do this. I'm glad you have this service. I'm glad you moved it just from your agency to where other agents can also benefit from it. And we'll have it up in the group. Thank you so much for your time.
You got it. Thanks, Mariah. Appreciate it.
All right.